Danny Cole wiped the grease from his hands and stared at the engine readings on his tablet. The numbers were bad. They had been bad for 3 days now, and they were getting worse by the hour. He had fixed a lot of broken things in his 12 years as a Starship mechanic, but he had never seen anything like this. The Artemis was dying. He walked through the narrow corridor of the engineering section, his boots making soft sounds against the floor. But this floor was not made of metal like the ships he had worked on before. It was warm and slightly soft, like skin. That was because the Artemis was not just a machine. It was alive. They had built this ship, and they built all their ships the same way. They grew them from special seeds, feeding them for years until they became great vessels that could travel between the stars. The ships had no normal engines or reactors. Instead, they had a living heart at their center, a bioorganic core that pumped energy through the vessel like blood through a body. And right now, that heart was sick. Danny stopped at a window and looked out at the stars. They were moving slowly, much too slowly. The ship should have been traveling at full speed toward the nearest space station, but it could barely manage a crawl. If they did not find a way to heal the ship soon, they would all die out here in the empty space between systems. Cole, a clicking voice called from behind him. Danny turned to see approaching. It was tall and thin, with 4 arms and a head that looked somewhat like an earth insect. His outer shell was a deep blue color, and his large eyes reflected the dim lights of the corridor. Was the chief engineer of the Artemis, and he had been working without sleep for 2 days trying to save the ship. Any luck with the secondary systems? Danny asked. Made a sound that Danny had learned meant frustration. Nothing works. The infection has spread too far. Every time we try to help one system, 2 more fail. It is like trying to hold water in your hands. Danny nodded. He had seen the same thing. The infection, whatever it was, attacked the ship's ability to heal itself. Normally, a living ship could repair minor damage on its own, just like a human body could heal a small cut. But this sickness had stopped all of that. Now the ship was slowly falling apart, and there was nothing anyone could do. A chime sounded through the corridor, and Captain Laura's voice came through the speakers. All senior crew, report to the command center immediately. Danny looked at, and they walked together toward the front of the ship. The command center was a large round room with a curved ceiling that looked like the inside of an egg. Strange lights pulsed slowly along the walls, showing the ship's vital signs. Most of those lights were now red or orange instead of the healthy green they should have been. Captain stood at the center of the room. She was a woman in her 50s with short gray hair and a face that had seen many difficult situations. But even she looked worried now, and that made Danny feel cold inside. Around her stood the other senior crew members. There were about a dozen humans on the Artemis, working alongside 30. It was a joint mission, meant to show that the 2 species could work together in peace. But now that peace meant nothing if they all died together. I will not waste time with soft words, Captain said. You all know the situation. The ship's bioorganic core is failing. Our friends have tried everything they know, and I have complete faith in their skills. But we need more ideas. We need to think beyond what we know. One of an elder named stepped forward. Captain, you must understand. We have studied our living ships for thousands of years. If there was a cure for this infection, we would know it. The kindest thing might be to prepare for the end with dignity. Danny felt his jaw tighten. He was not ready to give up. He had survived too many impossible situations to just accept death without a fight. How long do we have? He asked. Captain looked at him. Life support will fail in about 72 hours, maybe less. 72 hours. 3 days. Danny's mind started working, turning over every piece of information he had learned about technology since joining this mission. There had to be something, some angle that no one had considered. And then he remembered something strange. Captain, he said slowly, what about the old medical bay, the one in the lower decks that was sealed off? The room went quiet. Several of the shifted uncomfortably. Danny saw's large eyes narrow slightly. "That area is restricted," Captain said. "It was sealed after the plague outbreak 3 years ago, before your time on this ship." "I know," Danny said, "but I have been reading the old ship records. The medical officer back then, Doctor, she was studying biotechnology before she died. She thought there might be a connection between human biology and the way ships heal themselves." Made a sharp clicking sound. That research was a failure. Doctor was a brilliant woman, but she was wrong. Human biology cannot help our ships. "Maybe," Danny said, "but right now we have no other options. Whatever she learned is still down there. Maybe there is something in her notes that could help us." Captain was silent for a long moment. Danny could see her thinking, weighing the risk against their desperate situation. "Very well," she said finally. "Cole, you have permission to investigate the sealed medical bay, but be careful. We do not know what conditions are like down there." Danny nodded and turned to leave. As he walked out of the command center, he felt eyes following him. They did not trust him, and Danny understood why. He was just a mechanic, not a scientist or a doctor. What did he know about curing a living ship? But Danny had learned one thing in his years of fixing broken machines. Sometimes the answer was not in the books. Sometimes you had to look at a problem from a different direction. You had to get your hands dirty and find the truth for yourself. The lower decks were dark and cold. The ship was saving its remaining energy for the critical systems, so the lights down here had been turned off days ago. Danny used a small flashlight to guide his way through the empty corridors. Finally, he reached the sealed door of the old medical bay. There was a warning sign in both human and languages, telling everyone to stay out. Danny took a deep breath, entered his captain's override code, and watched the door slowly slide open. Cool air rushed out, carrying a faint smell of old medicine and something else, something organic. Danny stepped inside and let his flashlight move across the room. What he saw made his heart beat faster. This was no empty, abandoned space. This was a laboratory filled with equipment and notes and samples. Doctor had been working on something important here, something that everyone else had forgotten. And Danny was going to find out what it was. Danny moved slowly through the abandoned medical bay, his flashlight cutting through the darkness like a knife. Dust floated in the beam of light, dancing in patterns that seemed almost alive. The room was much larger than he had expected, stretching back into the shadows with rows of tables and strange machines. He found Dr. Mayne's workstation near the back wall. The desk was covered with papers, tablets, and sample containers. Everything was exactly as she had left it 3 years ago, frozen in time like a photograph. Danny felt a strange sadness looking at it. This woman had died trying to solve a problem that no one else believed in, and now her work sat here forgotten while the ship died around them. He picked up one of the tablets and turned it on. The battery was almost dead, but there was enough power to see the files. Danny started reading, his eyes moving quickly over the words. Doctor had been studying the bioorganic systems for years. She believed that there was something special about human biology, something that they did not have. According to her notes, human immune systems were much more flexible than those of most other species. Humans could adapt to fight new diseases faster than almost any other known life form. But that was not the interesting part. The interesting part was what she had tried to do with that knowledge. Doctor had attempted to bond human antibodies with the ship's living tissue. She believed that if she could make the ship recognize human biological material as friendly, then human healing factors could help repair damage to the vessel. It was a wild idea, but she had almost made it work. Danny kept reading, his excitement growing. The experiment had failed at the last moment because the ship's immune system had rejected the human material, but Doctor had written that she was close to finding a way around that problem. She just needed more time. Time she never got. Danny was so focused on the tablet that he did not hear the footsteps behind him. When a hand touched his shoulder, he jumped and spun around, nearly dropping the flashlight. Stood there, his large eyes reflecting the dim light. This face was hard to read, but Danny thought he saw anger in those alien features. "You should not be here," Human said. His voice was low and cold. "This place is sacred to us now. Doctor was a friend to you disturb her memory." Danny held up his hands in a peaceful gesture. "I am sorry, I did not mean any disrespect, but I found something important, something that might save the ship." He showed the tablet and explained what he had read. The engineer listened without speaking, his antenna moving slightly as he processed the information. When Danny finished, was quiet for a long moment. Then he made a soft clicking sound that Danny did not recognize. "We knew about this research," said finally. "The council was told after Doctor died. They decided it was too dangerous to continue." Danny stared at him. "You knew, and you never tried to use it." "It is not so simple." Human walked past Danny and looked at the equipment on the walls. "Our living ships are sacred to us. They are not just machines. They are partners, friends, members of our families. The idea of putting human blood inside them, of changing their nature with alien material, it is difficult for us to accept." Danny understood, but he also felt frustrated. "Your sacred partner is dying right now. In 72 hours, the Artemis will be dead, and so will all of us. Is your tradition worth more than survival?" Turned to face him, and for a moment Danny thought the might hit him. But instead, shoulders dropped slightly and his voice became softer. "You do not understand what you are asking, but perhaps you are right that we have no other choice." He paused, his antenna twitching. "What did Doctor discover? Why did her experiment fail?" Danny looked back at the tablet. "She says the ship's immune system rejected the human material because it saw it as an invader. But she was working on a way to introduce the material more slowly, to let the ship learn to accept it." "That would take weeks," said. "We have 3 days." "I know." Danny chewed his lip, thinking hard. He was a mechanic, not a doctor or a scientist. He fixed engines and power systems and life support units. But as he thought about the problem, something started to form in his mind. He said slowly, "When a ship is damaged, how does it repair itself?" The engineer looked confused by the question. "The living tissue grows back. It heals, just like any living thing." "But how does it know what to grow? How does it know what shape to take?" "Thought about it. There are control cells throughout the ship. They contain the pattern of the vessel. When there is damage, they tell the new tissue what to become." Danny nodded. "And this infection, what is it attacking exactly?" "The control cells. That is why the ship cannot heal. The control cells are dying faster than they can be replaced." Danny felt a smile spreading across his face. He finally understood the problem, and more importantly, he understood how to fix it. Doctor was trying to use human material to boost the ship's healing, but that is not the real problem. The real problem is that the control cells are gone. The ship does not know how to heal anymore. The eyes widened slightly. "Continue." "What if we do not try to heal the ship? What if we try to repair it instead? We do not need to make the ship accept human biology as part of itself. We just need to use human material as a temporary patch, like a bandage on a wound, until the ship can grow new control cells." Was silent. Danny could see his mind working, processing this new idea. They were brilliant engineers, but they had always thought of their ships as living things to be healed. Danny was thinking of the ship as a machine to be repaired. It was a different way of looking at the same problem. "That might work," said slowly, "but it would require a large amount of human biological material, more than your small crew could provide." Danny nodded. He had already thought of that. Doctor was working on something else before she died. "Look at this." He led deeper into the medical bay, to a large machine in the corner that was covered with a dusty sheet. Danny pulled the sheet away, and revealed a complex device with tubes and tanks and a chair in the center. "It is a replication system," he said. "Doctor built it to copy human biological compounds. If we can get it working, we can make enough material to heal the entire ship." Studied the machine with his engineer's eyes. "This is old technology. It will need repairs." Danny smiled. "Good thing you have a mechanic." For the first time since the crisis began, made a sound that Danny recognized as laughter. "Very well, human. Let us fix your machine and save our ship." Together, they began to work. Danny and worked through the night on the replication machine. The device was old and had been sitting unused for 3 years, so many of its parts had stopped working. But Danny knew machines and new technology, and together they slowly brought the system back to life. By morning, they had done everything they could. The machine was humming softly, its lights blinking in a steady pattern. But they still needed to test it, and they needed Captain's permission to move forward with the plan. Danny climbed up from the lower decks feeling tired but hopeful. When he reached the command center, he found most of the senior crew already gathered. The lights on the walls were even more red than before. The ship was getting worse. "Cole," Captain said when she saw him, "you look like you have not slept. What did you find?" Danny took a deep breath and explained everything. He told them about Dr. Research, about the replication machine, and about his idea to use human biological material as a temporary repair system rather than a permanent healing agent. He spoke simply, using words that both humans and could understand. When he finished, the room was silent. They looked uncomfortable, shifting their weight from one leg to another. The humans looked confused and uncertain. It was the elder who spoke first. "This plan treats our sacred ship like a broken tool. It ignores thousands of years of our tradition and wisdom. I cannot support this." "With respect," Danny said, "your traditions and wisdom have not saved the ship so far. Sometimes you need a new way of thinking." Made an angry clicking sound, but before he could speak again, stepped forward. "I have worked with this human through the night," said. "I did not trust him at first. I thought his ideas were foolish and disrespectful, but now I believe he may be right. Our old ways are not working. The Artemis is dying. If there is any chance that this plan could save our ship, should we not try?" The other murmured among themselves. Danny could not understand their language, but he could hear the tension in their voices. This was a difficult moment for them, a choice between their beliefs and their survival. Captain waited for the murmuring to stop, then spoke in a calm voice. "I understand the concerns on both sides, but as captain of this vessel, I must make a decision based on what gives us the best chance of survival. You said that we should prepare for the end with dignity, but I believe we should fight for life with everything we have." She turned to Danny. "Cole, you said the replication machine can produce enough material to repair the ship, but how does the process work?" Danny hesitated. This was the part he had not wanted to explain. The machine was designed to copy human biological compounds, but to do that, it needs a template, a living human connected to the system. The room went very quiet. "Connected how?" Captain asked. "The person would need to sit in the machine's chair. Tubes would be attached to their body. The machine would read their biological patterns and use that information to create the repair material." "Is it dangerous?" Danny looked at the floor. "Doctor notes say the process can be painful and there are risks. The machine puts stress on the human body. If something goes wrong, the person could be seriously hurt." A new voice spoke up from the side of the room. "I have some medical training. Let me see these notes." Danny turned and saw Kate Holland stepping forward. She was one of the junior crew members, a young woman with dark hair and kind eyes. She had been training to become a nurse before joining the Artemis mission. Danny handed her the tablet with Dr. Research. Kate read quickly, her face growing more serious as she went through the information. "The risks are real," she said finally. The person in the chair would experience significant physical stress. Their heart rate would increase, their body temperature would rise, and there could be damage to their internal organs if the process goes on too long. She paused. But the notes also suggest that a healthy adult should be able to survive the process if it is done carefully. Should be able to survive is not the same as will survive, Captain said quietly. No, Kate agreed. But we are talking about certain death for everyone if we do nothing, versus possible survival if we try. The captain nodded slowly. Then the question is, who would volunteer for this? Danny knew what he had to do. He had known since the moment he read Dr. Notes. This was his idea, his plan, and he would not ask anyone else to take the risk. I will do it, he said. Several people started to speak at once, but Danny raised his hand. Listen, I am a mechanic. I understand machines better than anyone else on this crew. If something goes wrong with the replication system while I am connected to it, I will know what to do. I will feel it happening and I can guide the repairs. Kate shook her head. That is not how medicine works. You cannot just feel your way through a medical emergency. Maybe not, Danny said, but I can feel my way through a mechanical one. And right now, that machine is more important than my body. If it breaks while we are in the middle of the process, we all die anyway. At least if I am the one inside, I have a chance of fixing any problems before they become fatal. Captain studied him for a long moment. Her eyes were tired and sad, but there was also something like respect in them. Are you sure about this, Cole? There is no shame in letting someone else volunteer. Danny smiled. Captain, I have been fixing broken things my whole life. This is just another repair job, except this time I am the spare part. No one laughed at his joke, but Danny had not expected them to. This was not a funny situation, but he had learned long ago that the best way to face fear was with a bit of humor. Kate stepped closer to him. If you are really going to do this, then I am going to be there with you. Someone needs to monitor your vital signs and make sure you do not push yourself too far. Danny nodded gratefully. I would appreciate that. Captain looked around the room one more time. The humans were worried but supportive. They were uncertain but no longer protesting. Even had fallen silent, his objections overcome by the desperate reality of their situation. Very well, the captain said. We will proceed with Cole's plan. Everyone prepare for the operation. We have less than 48 hours now. Let us not waste any more time. As the crew dispersed to their duties, approached Danny and placed one of his 4 hands on the human's shoulder. You are brave, Danny Cole, the said softly. Perhaps humans are more than we believed. Danny looked up at his alien friend and smiled. We will find out soon enough. Medical Bay was brighter now, and the other engineers had restored power to the lower decks so that Danny and Kate could work in proper light. The replication machine stood in the center of the room like a strange throne, its chair waiting for someone to sit in it. Danny stood before the machine, feeling his heart beat faster than normal. He was not afraid of pain. He had been hurt many times in his work as a mechanic. Burns, cuts, broken bones, he had experienced all of them. But this was different. This was a machine designed to read his very biology, to copy the patterns of his life. He did not fully understand what that would feel like. Kate finished checking the equipment and walked over to him. She had dark circles under her eyes from lack of sleep, but her hands were steady and her voice was calm. I have set up monitoring systems on both sides of the room, she said. I will be able to see your heart rate, blood pressure, temperature, and brain activity at all times. If anything looks dangerous, I will shut the process down. Even if the ship is not fully healed. Kate hesitated. Danny, we need you alive. The ship can survive partial repairs. It cannot survive if you die in that chair, and we have no one left who understands how this system works. Danny nodded, but he was not sure he agreed. The ship needed to be completely healed or the infection would just spread again. Half measures would not save anyone. But he did not say this to Kate. There was no point in worrying her more than she already was. Entered the room with two other engineers. They had been preparing the ship systems to receive the repair material. Tubes and cables now stretched from the replication machine through the walls, connecting to the bioorganic core of the Artemis. "We are ready," said. "The ship knows something is coming. I can feel it in the walls. It is afraid, but it is also hopeful." Danny smiled at that. Even now, with death so close, the still spoke of their ship as a living being with feelings. In a strange way, Danny had come to share that view. He had felt the warmth of the ship's floors, heard the soft sounds of its breathing systems, sensed the gentle pulse of its bioorganic heart. The Artemis was alive, and it deserved to keep living. He walked to the chair and sat down. The seat was surprisingly comfortable, shaped to fit the human body perfectly. Doctor had designed this machine with care and understanding. Kate began attaching the tubes to Danny's arms and chest. The needles stung slightly as they entered his skin, but the pain was minor. What bothered him more was the feeling of being connected to something outside himself, of becoming part of a larger system. "How do you feel?" Kate asked. "Like a component in a machine," Danny said, "which I suppose is exactly what I am now." Kate gave him a small smile, but her eyes were worried. "Remember, if it becomes too much, just say the word and I will stop everything." "I know, but I will be okay. I trust this machine. I fixed it myself." Approached and stood beside the chair. "I will stay here with you," he said. "If there are any problems with the ship systems, I will be able to respond immediately." Danny was grateful for that. Despite their rocky start, he had come to respect. There was a good engineer and a good person, even if he was not human. Captain's voice came through the communication system. "Cole, we are ready up here. The entire crew is standing by. You have done well to bring us this far. Now finish the job." Danny took a deep breath, starting the process now. He reached out and pressed the activation button on the arm of the chair. At first, nothing happened. The machine hummed quietly, and Danny felt a slight tingling in his arms where the tubes were connected. But then the sensation began to grow. It started as warmth, spreading from his arms into his chest, and then throughout his whole body. Danny felt like he was sitting in a bath of hot water, surrounded by gentle heat. But the warmth kept building, becoming more intense with each passing second. Then came the strange part. Danny began to see things that were not in the room with him. He saw the corridors of the Artemis, stretching out in every direction. He saw the bioorganic walls and the glowing cables that carried energy through the ship. He saw the sick areas where the infection had spread, dark patches of dying tissue that pulsed with pain. And he felt it all. He felt the ship suffering like it was his own body that was sick. The pain was not physical, but it was real. It made him want to cry out, to pull away, to escape, but he forced himself to stay still. "Danny, your heart rate is increasing," Kate said from somewhere far away. "Try to stay calm." Stay calm. Easy for her to say. Danny was experiencing something that no human had ever felt before, a direct connection to a living alien vessel. It was beautiful and terrible at the same time. The replication machine was reading his biology now, copying the patterns of his blood and tissues. Danny could feel the copies flowing out through the tubes, traveling through the ship's systems toward the damaged areas. Where they touched the sick tissue, something amazing happened. The ship began to heal. Danny watched in wonder as the dark patches of infection started to shrink. New healthy tissue grew in their place, guided by the human repair material. It was working. His crazy idea was actually working. But the process was also draining him. Each copy that the machine made took something from Danny. Not blood or tissue, those were being replicated, not taken, but something else. Energy, perhaps, life force. He did not know what to call it, but he could feel himself becoming weaker. "Danny, your temperature is rising too fast," Kate warned. "We need to slow down." Not yet, Danny managed to say through clenched teeth. The core is not healed yet. I can see it, just a little more. He pushed harder, forcing the machine to work faster. The pain increased, washing over him in waves. He heard Kate shouting, felt hands on his shoulders, but he did not stop. He could see the ship's heart now, the great bioorganic core that gave the Artemis life. It was surrounded by infection, barely beating. Danny sent everything he had toward that heart. All the repair material, all the healing patterns, all of his energy and will. He felt himself falling, fatting, but he did not care. If he died here, at least he would die saving something beautiful. The last thing he saw before darkness took him was the ship's heart beginning to beat strongly again, glowing with healthy light. And he smiled. He had fixed it. He had actually fixed it. Then there was nothing but silence and peace. Danny woke slowly, like a swimmer rising from deep water. The first thing he noticed was the sound. A gentle rhythm, like a heartbeat, but much larger and slower than any human heart. It took him a moment to realize what he was hearing. It was the ship. The Artemis was breathing. He opened his eyes and found himself lying in a bed in the medical bay. The room looked different now. The walls were glowing with a soft green light, the healthy color that meant all systems were working properly. The dark feeling of sickness that had hung over the ship for days was completely gone. Kate was sitting in a chair beside his bed, her head resting on her arms. She was asleep, and Danny did not want to wake her. Instead, he carefully sat up and looked around the room. Everything felt strange. Not bad, just different. Danny could sense things that he should not have been able to sense. He knew that the air recycling system was working at full power. He knew that the engine was running smoothly, ready to take them to the nearest space station. He knew that the bioorganic core was healthy and strong, pumping energy through the ship like blood through a body. He knew these things because he could feel them, as clearly as he could feel his own heartbeat. The door to the medical bay opened and entered. When they saw that Danny was awake, his antenna stood straight up in surprise. "You are conscious," said, moving quickly to the bedside. "We were not sure when you would wake. It has been 2 days." 2 days? Danny's voice was rough and dry. "I slept for 2 days." "Your body needed to recover. What you did was incredible, Danny Cole. You saved the entire ship, the entire crew." Kate stirred at the sound of voices and lifted her head. When she saw Danny sitting up, her tired face broke into a wide smile. "You stubborn, crazy mechanic," she said, her voice thick with emotion. "You almost died. Your heart stopped twice. If it had not helped me restart it, you would not be here." Danny looked at with new understanding. "You saved my life." They made a dismissive gesture with one of his 4 arms. "You were saving all of us. It was the least I could do." Danny swung his legs over the side of the bed and tried to stand. His legs felt weak, but they held him. Kate immediately came to his side, ready to catch him if he fell. "Take it easy," she said. "You have been through a lot." "I feel fine," Danny said, and he meant it. Actually, he felt more than fine. He felt connected to something vast and wonderful. But something is different. Something has changed. And Kate exchanged a look that told Danny they knew something he did not. "What is it?" he asked. "What happened to me?" Stepped closer, his large eyes studying Danny with fascination. "When you connected yourself to the replication machine, you did more than just provide biological material to the ship. You created a bond, a permanent link between your consciousness and the Artemis." Danny stared at him. "What does that mean?" "It means you can feel the ship," said. "You can sense its systems, its health, its needs. You are connected to it in a way that no one, human or, has ever been connected to a living vessel before." Danny thought about the strange sensations he had been experiencing since waking up. The knowledge of the ship's systems, the feeling of its heartbeat. It all made sense now. "Is this permanent?" he asked. "We do not know for certain, but we believe so. The bond formed during the healing process seems to be stable." Paused. Among my people, this is something we have dreamed of for centuries. We have always wanted to communicate more deeply with our ships, to truly understand them. You have achieved what we never could." Danny did not know how to respond to that. He had just wanted to fix a broken ship. He had never asked to become part of it. Captain's voice came through the communication system. "Cole, I am told you are awake. Report to the command center when you are able. There are people who want to meet you." Kate helped Danny walk through the corridors of the ship. With each step, he felt the Artemis more clearly. He could sense the warm walls responding to his presence, almost as if the ship was happy to see him moving around again. When they reached the command center, Danny was surprised to find it crowded with crew members, both human and. Captain stood at the front, and beside her were three he had never seen before. They wore different clothes than the crew, formal robes decorated with symbols that seemed important. "Danny Cole," Captain said with a rare smile, "these are representatives from the High Council. They arrived an hour ago after receiving our message about what happened." One of the council members stepped forward. She was older than any Danny had seen, her outer shell faded to a pale gray, but her eyes were sharp and bright. "We have traveled far to meet you, human," she said. "Our ships have served us for thousands of years, but we have never truly been able to speak with them. You have done something miraculous. You have become a bridge between species." Danny felt embarrassed by all the attention. "I am just a mechanic," he said. "I fixed what was broken, that is all." The elder made a sound that might have been a laugh. "Just a mechanic. Perhaps that is exactly what was needed. Our scientists and doctors tried to solve this problem with complicated theories and advanced technology. You solved it by looking at the situation simply and doing what needed to be done." She reached out and took Danny's hand in her own, a gesture of deep respect among the. "You will always be welcome among our people, Danny Cole, and perhaps, in time, other humans will learn to bond with our ships as you have. This could be the beginning of a new era for both our species." Later that night, after all the celebrations and speeches were over, Danny stood alone in the engine room. The bioorganic core glowed with healthy light, its great heart beating in a steady rhythm. Danny placed his hand against the warm wall and closed his eyes. He could feel the Artemis all around him. It was not just a ship anymore. It was part of him and he was part of it. They had saved each other. Footsteps approached behind him, and Danny opened his eyes to see standing nearby. "What does it feel like?" they asked quietly. Danny thought about it for a moment, searching for the right words. Then he smiled. "It feels like coming home." Stood beside him, and together they watched the stars through the engine room window as the Artemis jumped to hyperspace. The ship was healed. The crew was safe. And Danny Cole, the simple mechanic who had done the impossible, had found something he never expected to find. A family among the stars.